Commander Jinwoo sat in his small room on the spaceship New Seoul and stared at the bright screen in front of him. The alien computer files they had found in the crashed ship were full of strange information, but this one file made his heart beat fast and his hands shake. The title on the screen said, Species Classification Humans Threat Level Unknown. Jinwoo had been working on these alien files for 3 weeks now, ever since they found the crashed ship floating in empty space near the edge of human territory. The ship was damaged beyond repair, but its computer system was still working. The aliens inside were dead, but their technology was far more advanced than anything humans had ever seen. He scrolled through the file and read the first few lines. The report was written by some kind of alien military group. It talked about different species across the galaxy and how dangerous they were. Most species were marked as low threat or medium threat. Some were marked as high threat because they had powerful weapons or were very aggressive, but humans were different. Humans were marked as unknown threat, and that scared Jinwoo more than he wanted to admit. The file went on to describe human weapons in detail. Jinwoo read about things he knew from Earth history: swords designed to cause slow bleeding instead of quick death, arrows with barbed tips that would tear flesh when removed, chemical weapons that made people suffer for days before they died. The aliens had studied all of this. They had watched human wars and battles. They had seen what humans did to each other. What made Jinwoo feel sick was how the aliens wrote about these weapons. They seemed confused and frightened. The report said that every other species in the galaxy made weapons to kill quickly and efficiently. When they fought, they wanted to end battles as fast as possible. But humans were different. Humans made weapons that were designed to cause pain and fear. Dr. So Young knocked on his door and came into the room. She was holding a tablet and her face was pale. Jinwoo, you need to see this, she said. Her voice was shaking like she was scared. She showed him the tablet. It was full of messages between different alien species from all over the galaxy. Every message was a warning about humans. The messages all said the same thing: stay away from human space. Do not make contact with humans. Do not let humans capture you alive. If you see human ships, run away as fast as you can. Some of the messages were more detailed. They talked about human prisoners who had been captured by other species. The aliens said that humans acted differently than other prisoners. Most species would try to escape or fight back or just wait quietly. But humans would do something else. They would try to get inside the heads of their captors. They would say things designed to make their guards angry or scared or confused. So Young sat down next to Jinwoo and they read through more of the messages together. One message talked about a battle where humans had captured some alien soldiers. Instead of killing them quickly or keeping them as prisoners, the humans had done something that no other species had ever done. They had hurt the prisoners just enough to make them afraid, then let them go. The freed prisoners spread stories about human cruelty that made entire alien fleets avoid human territory. Another message described human weapons that were designed not to kill, but to wound. The aliens could not understand why humans would want to wound their enemies instead of killing them. They did not know that wounded soldiers needed other soldiers to help them, and this would slow down entire armies. The aliens thought this was just another sign that humans enjoyed causing pain. Jinwoo found a section of the file that made him feel even worse. It was a comparison between human warfare and the warfare of other species. Every other species in the galaxy had rules about fighting. They would fight until one side won or lost, then the fighting would stop. The winning side would take what they wanted and leave the losing side alone, but humans were different. Humans had concepts like making examples of their enemies. Humans would sometimes hurt their enemies extra just to send a message to other potential enemies. The file described something called psychological warfare. The aliens had never seen anything like it. Most species fought with weapons and strength and numbers, but humans fought with fear and confusion and tricks. They would do things designed to make their enemies too scared to fight back. They would spread rumors and lies. They would attack in ways that seemed random but were actually carefully planned to break enemy. More or less. So Young pointed to another section of the file that talked about human torture devices. The aliens had found records of human history and they were horrified by what they saw. Iron Maidens designed to cause slow death racks that would stretch people until their bones broke, devices that would cause Maximum pain without killing quickly. The aliens could not understand why humans would create such things. Every other species would just kill their enemies and be done with it. The most disturbing part of the file was the conclusion. The alien military experts had decided that humans were fundamentally different from every other intelligent species in the galaxy. They believed that humans actually enjoyed causing pain and suffering. They thought that humans saw warfare not as a necessity, but as entertainment. Jinwoo read the final paragraph of the file out loud. Recommendation: all species should avoid contact with humans at all costs. Human military tactics suggest a species that views suffering as desirable rather than simply necessary. Human weapons are designed to maximize pain rather than achieve efficient elimination. Human psychological warfare capabilities are beyond the scope of normal military analysis. So Young looked at Jinwoo with wide eyes. Do you think they are wrong about us? She asked. Jinwoo thought about human history. He thought about all the wars and battles and weapons that humans had created. He thought about the torture devices and the psychological warfare and the concept of making examples of enemies. He realized that the aliens were not completely wrong. Humans had indeed created weapons designed to cause pain. Humans had developed psychological warfare that was meant to break minds, not just bodies. Humans had concepts like terror and intimidation that other species seemed to lack. But Jinwoo also knew that humans could be kind and peaceful and loving. He knew that humans created art and music and poetry. He knew that humans could work together and help each other and build beautiful things. The aliens had only seen the dark side of human nature. They had only studied human warfare and violence. Jinwoo looked at the screen again and saw a new message that had just appeared. It was from the Galactic Council, the governing body of all intelligent species in the galaxy. The message was short but clear. Emergency session called Topic Human Threat Assessment. All species advised to prepare defensive measures. So Young grabbed Jinwoo's arm. We need to warn Earth, she said. If the entire galaxy thinks we are monsters, they might decide to attack us first. Jinwoo nodded. He knew she was right. The discovery of this file had changed everything. Humans thought they were just one species among many in the galaxy, but now they knew the truth. Every other species saw them as uniquely dangerous, uniquely cruel, uniquely willing to cause pain and suffering. Jinwoo saved the file and prepared to send it back to Earth Command. The human race was about to learn that their reputation across the galaxy was that of cosmic sadists, and this knowledge would change everything about how humans saw themselves and their place in the universe. 3 months after the discovery of the alien files, engineer Hansol was working on a space station near the edge of human territory. When he picked up a strange signal, it was an emergency transmission from deep space, and it was not meant for human ears. Hansol had been monitoring alien communications for months, trying to learn more about the species that lived beyond human space. The signal was encrypted, but Hansol had learned to break alien codes during his years of work. The message made his blood turn cold. The Galactic Council was holding an emergency meeting, and the only topic was what to do about the human threat. Hansol quickly recorded the transmission and began to decode the full message. Meanwhile, Ambassador Young-mi sat in the massive chamber of the Galactic Council, surrounded by hundreds of alien delegates from across the galaxy. She was the only human in the room, and she could feel the fear and suspicion radiating from every alien present. The chamber was so large that it could hold thousands of beings, and today it was packed full. The lead counselor was a tall alien with 6 arms and skin that changed colors when he was emotional. Right now his skin was flashing red and orange, which Hansol had learned meant extreme agitation. The counselor stood at the center of the chamber and began to speak in a voice that echoed through the vast space. We have called this emergency session because we have discovered something that threatens the peace of our galaxy. The counselor announced. His skin flashed brighter red as he continued. We have been studying the species known as humans, and what we have found disturbs us beyond measure. Young-mi felt her stomach drop as she realized what was happening. The aliens had discovered the same things that Jinwoo and So-young had found in the crashed ship files. The entire galaxy now knew about human weapons and warfare tactics. The counselor continued speaking. We have analyzed human military history across thousands of years, and we have reached a conclusion that no species wants to hear humans are not like us. They do not fight the way we fight. They do not kill the way we kill. They have created weapons and tactics that are designed specifically to cause maximum suffering. A murmur of fear rippled through the chamber. Young Me looked around and saw aliens from dozens of different species all nodding in agreement. Some were small and furry, others were tall and thin, some had multiple eyes or arms or legs, but they all shared the same expression of terror when they looked at her. The counselor activated a holographic display that showed images from human history. Young Me watched in horror as the display showed medieval torture devices, chemical weapons designed to cause slow death, and psychological warfare tactics that had been used throughout human history. The aliens had studied everything. Look at these devices, the counselor said, pointing to an image of an Iron Maiden. This is not designed to kill quickly. This is designed to cause maximum pain before death. Look at these chemical weapons. They do not kill instantly. They cause days of agony before the victim dies. This is not efficient warfare. This is cruelty for the sake of cruelty. Another alien stood up to speak. This one was covered in scales and had a voice like grinding metal. We have fought wars for territory and resources, but we have never created weapons like these. When we fight, we seek to end conflicts quickly and efficiently, but humans seem to enjoy the process of causing. Penyungmi wanted to stand up and defend her species, but she knew that everything the aliens were saying was true. Humans had created weapons designed to terrorize and torture. Humans had developed psychological warfare that was meant to break minds before breaking bodies. Humans had concepts like making examples of enemies that other species found incomprehensible. The counselor brought up more examples of human warfare tactics. He talked about how humans would sometimes wound enemies instead of killing them because wounded soldiers required medical attention and would slow down entire armies. He described how humans would release prisoners who had been tortured, just enough to spread fear among enemy forces. But the most disturbing thing the counselor revealed was something that Young Me had never thought about before. The aliens had analyzed human entertainment and found that humans enjoyed stories about violence and suffering. Humans created movies and books and games that featured torture and psychological warfare as entertainment. No other species in the galaxy creates entertainment based on causing pain, the counselor said. His skin was now flashing bright red. We have studied the entertainment of hundreds of species, and they focus on cooperation, exploration, and problem solving. But humans create entertainment that celebrates violence and suffering. An alien that looked like a giant insect clicked its mandibles together and spoke in a buzzing voice. We have intercepted human communications and found that they use phrases like making an example of someone and psychological warfare as normal parts of their language. These concepts do not exist in any other known language. Young Me felt tears forming in her eyes as she realized how her species appeared to the rest of the galaxy. Everything that humans considered normal military strategy, the aliens saw as evidence of a fundamentally cruel and sadistic nature. The counselor continued with his presentation. He showed examples of human sports that involved violence and competition. He described how humans would cheer for fighters who caused pain to their opponents. He explained how humans had turned warfare into a form of entertainment throughout their history. The worst part was when the counselor described human prison systems. He explained how humans would keep prisoners alive for years or decades, sometimes in conditions designed to cause psychological suffering. Other species would either release prisoners or execute them quickly, but humans had created systems designed to cause long-term mental anguish. One by one, alien delegates stood up to share their own observations about human behavior. They described how human prisoners would try to manipulate their captors psychologically. They talked about how humans would use information about their enemies' families and loved ones as weapons. They explained how humans had developed the concept of terrorism, which was designed to cause fear in civilian populations. Young Me listened in growing horror as the aliens described human behavior that she had never thought about from an outside perspective. The aliens saw humans as uniquely cruel beings who enjoyed causing suffering not just to their enemies, but sometimes to their own people. The session continued for hours as alien after alien stood up to catalog human cruelty. The aliens had studied human history in incredible detail, and they had found patterns of behavior that no other species exhibited. Humans would sometimes torture Prisoners not for information but simply to break their spirits, humans would create weapons designed to cause fear. Even when more efficient weapons were available, finally the Council called for a vote. The question was simple: should the Galactic Council classify humans as a threat to galactic peace and take action to contain them? Young Mi watched in despair as alien after alien voted yes. The final vote was unanimous except for her own abstention. The Counselor announced the decision. The Galactic Council hereby classifies the human species as a Class 5 psychological threat. All member species are advised to avoid contact with humans. All trade agreements with humans are suspended. All human vessels found in non-human space will be considered hostile. Young Mi stood up to speak, but the Counselor cut her off. The decision has been made, Ambassador. We cannot risk the psychological contamination of our species by continued contact with humans. Your species has shown a fundamental enjoyment of causing suffering that is incompatible with civilized society. As the session ended, Young Mi sat alone in the massive chamber. She realized that humanity was now completely isolated in the galaxy. Every other intelligent species saw humans as monsters who enjoyed causing pain and suffering. The worst part was that she could not argue with their assessment, because everything they had said was true. And Saul received the transmission of the entire session and immediately sent it back to Earth Command. Humanity was about to learn that they were alone in the galaxy, not because they were unique or special, but because every other species was afraid of them. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had ended before it had even begun. Dr. Kyung-ho was deep in his laboratory, analyzing alien communication patterns, when he discovered something that made his hands shake uncontrollably. The files he was decoding contained detailed psychological profiles of human behavior written by alien researchers who had been studying humanity for decades without humans ever knowing about it. His research assistant Na Young was working at the computer terminal next to him when she noticed his distress. Kyung-ho, what did you find? She asked. He could barely speak as he pointed to his screen. The aliens had not just been watching human military activities. They had been studying human psychology, human culture, and human entertainment for over 50 years. The files contained reports from alien anthropologists who had infiltrated human society by disguising themselves as humans. They had lived among humans, worked with humans, and even formed relationships with humans, all while secretly reporting back to their homeworlds about human behavior and psychology. Young read over his shoulder and gasped. The first report was titled Understanding Human Pleasure, Response to Suffering, and it was written by an alien who had spent 10 years living on Earth. The report described how humans would gather in large groups to watch other humans fight and hurt each other in sporting events. The alien researcher had attended boxing matches, wrestling competitions, and martial arts tournaments. He wrote about how humans would cheer loudly when one fighter caused pain to another. He described how humans would pay money to watch these events and how they would become emotionally invested in seeing their favorite fighter cause suffering to their opponent. But what disturbed the alien researcher most was that humans did not just enjoy watching physical violence. They also enjoyed psychological violence. The researcher had watched human television shows and movies and found that humans created entertainment based on psychological torture, manipulation, and mind games. Na Young found another report titled Human Child Development and Aggression Training. This report described how human children were taught to fight and compete from a very young age. The alien researcher had observed human schools and found that humans actively encouraged their children to participate in competitive sports where the goal was to defeat and dominate other children. The researcher wrote about how human children would play games that involved capturing and imprisoning other children. They described how human children would create elaborate rules for their games that involved punishment and suffering for the losers. The alien could not understand why humans would teach their children to enjoy causing distress to others. Kyung-ho discovered a section of files that contained interviews with alien prisoners who had been captured by humans during various conflicts. The interviews revealed a pattern of behavior that no other species had ever documented. When other species captured prisoners, they would either execute them quickly or hold them for strategic purposes. But humans did something different. Alien prisoners described how their human captors would engage in what they called psychological warfare, the humans would not just imprison their captives. They would try to break their minds and spirits. The prisoners described how humans would use information about their families and loved ones as weapons against them. One interview was particularly disturbing. It was with an alien who had been captured during a skirmish near human space. The alien described how his human captors had not tortured him physically, but had instead used psychological techniques to break his will. To resist, they had shown him images of his home planet and told him detailed stories about what would happen to his family if he did not cooperate. The alien prisoner said that he had never experienced anything like human psychological warfare. Before, other species would threaten physical harm, but humans would attack the mind and emotions in ways that were far more effective than physical torture. The prisoner said that after just a few days of human psychological techniques, he would have done anything to make it stop. Na Young found a report that made her feel sick. It was titled, Human Entertainment Industry Analysis of Violence Content. The alien researchers had studied human movies, television shows, books, and video games for decades. They had cataloged thousands of examples of human entertainment that featured violence, torture, and psychological manipulation. Reports showed that humans not only tolerated violence in their entertainment, but actively sought it out. The most popular human entertainment featured characters who caused pain and suffering to their enemies. The aliens noted that human heroes were often characters who used psychological warfare and torture to defeat their opponents. What shocked the alien researchers was that humans would consume this violent entertainment during their leisure time. Other species used their free time for activities that promoted cooperation and harmony, but humans chose to watch other beings suffer for entertainment. Kyung Ho discovered a comparative analysis that made him understand why the aliens were so frightened. The report compared human warfare tactics to those of hundreds of other species across the galaxy. Every other species had developed warfare that was designed to achieve objectives quickly and efficiently. They would fight until one side achieved victory, then the conflict would end. But humans had developed something the aliens called perpetual psychological warfare. Even after achieving victory, humans would continue to inflict suffering on their defeated enemies. The aliens had found examples throughout human history where humans had won battles but continued to torture and humiliate their captives long after the fighting had ended. The report described how humans had created entire institutions dedicated to causing long-term psychological suffering. Human prison systems were designed not just to contain criminals, but to break their spirits over years or decades. Human military training included extensive education in psychological warfare techniques that were designed to cause maximum mental anguish. Na Young found the most disturbing file of all. It was titled Human Capacity for Empathy Dysfunction. The alien researchers had tried to understand how humans could be capable of both great kindness and extreme cruelty. The report concluded that humans had developed the ability to selectively turn off their empathy for certain groups of people. The aliens described how humans could be loving and caring toward members of their own group while simultaneously being cruel and sadistic toward members of other groups. They noted that humans had created complex psychological mechanisms that allowed them to dehumanize their enemies and justify causing them suffering. The report explained that this selective empathy was what made humans so dangerous. Other species would either be aggressive toward all other beings or peaceful toward all other beings, but humans could switch between kindness and cruelty depending on how they classified the other. By Kyung Ho read the final conclusion of the alien research and felt his heart sink. The report stated that humans were fundamentally different from every other known intelligent species in the galaxy. Humans had evolved psychological capabilities that allowed them to cause suffering not just as a means to an end, but as an end in itself. The aliens concluded that humans were not just a military threat, but a psychological threat to the mental health of other species. Prolonged contact with humans could potentially corrupt other species and teach them to enjoy causing suffering. The report recommended complete isolation of humanity to prevent the spread of what they called psychological contamination. A Young looked at Kyung Ho with tears in her eyes. "Do you think they are wrong about us?" she asked. Kyung Ho thought about everything he had read. He thought about human history and human entertainment and human behavior, he realized that the aliens were not wrong. Humans did enjoy watching violence. Humans did create entertainment based on suffering. Humans did use psychological warfare in ways that other species found incomprehensible. Humans had indeed developed the capacity for cruelty that seemed to be unique in the galaxy, but Kyung-ho also knew that the aliens had only seen part of the human story. They had studied human violence and aggression, but they had not studied human compassion and creativity. They had analyzed human warfare, but they had not analyzed human art and music and literature. The problem was that the aliens were right about the dark side of human nature, and that dark side was something that no other species possessed. Humans were unique in the galaxy, but not in a good way. They were unique because they had evolved the capacity to enjoy causing suffering, and that made them a threat to every other living being in the universe. As Kyung-ho prepared his report for Earth Command, he wondered if there was any way to prove to the aliens that humans were more than just their capacity for cruelty. But deep down he knew that the aliens had good reason to fear humanity, and that fear might be the only thing that kept the galaxy safe from human psychological warfare. Captain Ji-hoon stood in the briefing room aboard the military vessel Bison Pride, staring at the classified report that had just arrived from Earth Command. The message was simple but terrifying. Every alien species in the galaxy considered humans to be monsters who enjoyed causing pain and suffering, and they had voted to completely isolate humanity from the rest of galactic civilization. Sergeant Minna, his tactical advisor, stood beside him reading the same report. Her face was pale and her hands were shaking as she absorbed the implications of what they had learned. The entire galaxy feared them not because humans were powerful or technologically advanced, but because they were psychologically different from every other intelligent species. Colonel Duhain, the ship's commander, called an emergency meeting of all senior officers. The briefing room filled with confused and worried faces as the officers tried to understand what was happening. Ji-hoon had been ordered to present the findings to the assembled group. Ladies and gentlemen, Ji-hoon began, we have received intelligence that changes everything we thought we knew about our place in the galaxy. The alien species we have been hoping to make contact with have been studying us for decades, and they have reached a conclusion that threatens our future. He activated the holographic display and showed images from the alien files. The officers gasped as they saw detailed analyses of human weapons, torture devices, and psychological warfare techniques. The aliens had studied human history in incredible detail, and they had found patterns of behavior that no other species exhibited. The aliens believe that we are fundamentally different from them, Ji-hoon continued. They think that we enjoy causing pain and suffering not just as a means to achieve military objectives, but as an end in itself. They have classified us as a psychological threat to galactic civilization. Lieutenant Tu Jin raised her hand. Captain, are they wrong about us? She asked. The question hung in the air like a poison cloud because everyone in the room knew the answer. The aliens were not wrong about human capacity for cruelty. Colonel Duhain spoke up. We need to face the truth about ourselves, he said. Look at our military doctrine, look at our weapons, look at our entertainment. Everything the aliens have said about us is accurate. We do create weapons designed to cause fear. We do use psychological warfare. We do have entertainment based on violence and suffering. The room fell silent as the officers contemplated this reality. Major Tae-young broke the silence by asking the question that everyone was thinking. What if the aliens are right to fear us? What if we are more dangerous than we realize? Ji-hoon pulled up more data from the alien files. The aliens had documented human behavior that even the officers had never thought about before. They had studied human sports and found that humans enjoyed watching other humans fight and get hurt. They had analyzed human video games and found that humans created entertainment based on killing and torturing virtual beings. The aliens had also studied human language and found concepts that did not exist in any other known language, making an example of someone's psychological warfare, terrorism. These were uniquely human concepts that other species could not understand. Sergeant Minna presented additional intelligence that made the situation even worse. The aliens had intercepted human communications and found that humans used violent metaphors in their everyday speech. Humans would say things like, I could kill him, or That was torture when they were not actually talking about violence. Other species took these phrases literally and concluded that humans thought about violence constantly. The briefing continued with more disturbing revelations. The aliens had studied human history and found that humans had developed more creative methods of causing suffering than any other known species. Humans had created elaborate torture devices not because they were the most efficient way to extract information, but because they were designed to cause maximum pain. Colonel Duhayan showed historical examples that made the officers uncomfortable. Medieval torture devices were designed to cause slow death. Chemical weapons were created to cause days of agony before killing their victims. Psychological warfare techniques were developed to break minds before breaking bodies. What made it worse was that the aliens had studied human entertainment and found that humans enjoyed fictional depictions of the same cruelty they used in warfare. Human movies and television shows featured heroes who used torture and psychological manipulation to defeat their enemies. Human video games allowed players to experience causing suffering to virtual beings. Lieutenant Sujin asked another difficult question. Are we capable of change? Can we prove to the aliens that we are not the monsters they think we are? The question sparked a heated debate among the officers. Some argued that humans were capable of great kindness and compassion. Others pointed out that human history was filled with examples of cruelty and violence that seemed to support the alien perspective. Major Tae-young made a disturbing observation. Even our attempts at peace involve the threat of violence, he said. Our diplomacy is based on the concept of deterrence, which means threatening to cause suffering. If the other side does not comply, this is not how other species approach conflict resolution. The officers realized that even human peacekeeping efforts were based on the threat of violence. Human police forces were trained to use psychological intimidation and physical force to maintain order. Human military forces were designed to cause fear in potential enemies. Even during Ji Hoon presented the final part of the briefing, which was a strategic assessment of humanity's situation. The aliens had not just classified humans as a threat, they had taken action to isolate humanity from the rest of galactic civilization. All trade agreements had been suspended. All human vessels found in non-human space would be considered hostile. The isolation was complete, and it was permanent. The aliens had made it clear that they would never trust humans enough to allow normal diplomatic relations. Humanity was alone in the galaxy, not because they were unique or special, but because every other species was afraid of them. Colonel Duhayan made the final decision. We need to understand why we are different from other species, he announced. If we are going to survive as a species, we need to know why we developed these psychological capabilities and whether we can change them. The meeting ended with more questions than answers. The officers realized that humanity faced a crisis that was unlike anything they had ever encountered. They were not being attacked by a superior military force. They were being rejected by an entire galaxy because of their psychological nature. Ji Hoon remained in the briefing room after the other officers left. He stared at the alien files and wondered if there was any hope for humanity. The aliens had studied human behavior for decades, and they had concluded that humans were fundamentally incompatible with civilized society. The worst part was that Ji Hoon could not argue with their assessment. Humans did enjoy violence as entertainment. Humans did create weapons designed to cause fear. Humans did use psychological warfare in ways that other species found incomprehensible, but Ji Hoon also knew that humans were capable of great things. Humans created beautiful art and music. Humans could love and care for each other. Humans could work together to solve problems and build amazing things. The aliens had only seen the dark side of human nature. The question was whether the good side of humanity could overcome the dark side, whether humans could prove that they were more than just their capacity for cruelty, whether there was any hope for reconciliation with the rest of galactic civilization. As Ji Hoon prepared his report for Earth Command, he knew that humanity's future depended on understanding why they were different from other species and whether that difference could be changed. The age of human expansion into the galaxy had ended before it had begun, and now humanity had to fight not for territory or resources, but for the right to exist alongside other intelligent beings. The Galaxy had spoken, and their message was clear: humans were too dangerous to be allowed to roam free among civilized species, and unless something changed, humanity would remain forever isolated in their small corner of the universe. Dr. Jae-sung stood in his laboratory surrounded by genetic analysis equipment and evolutionary data that could change everything humanity thought about itself. He had been working for months with his team to understand why humans were so different from other species in the galaxy, and what he had discovered would shake the foundations of human identity. His colleague, Dr. Haijin, was analyzing linguistic patterns from hundreds of alien species when she made a breakthrough that connected to Jae-sung research. Every other species in the galaxy had evolved alone on their home planets. They had developed language and culture and weapons without competition from other intelligent beings, but Earth was different. Earth had produced multiple intelligent species at the same time. Humans had shared their planet with Neanderthals, Denisovans, and other human subspecies that were just as intelligent and adaptable as modern humans. This created evolutionary pressures that no other known species had ever experienced. Jae-sung called his research team together to share their findings. The conference room filled with scientists who had been working on different aspects of the human psychology problem. They all knew that their work could determine whether humanity had any hope of reconciliation with the galactic community. Dr. Haijin presented her linguistic analysis first. She had studied the languages of over 300 alien species and found that none of them had concepts equivalent to human psychological warfare. Every other species had words for fighting and conflict, but they did not have words for intimidation, manipulation, or psychological torture. The reason became clear when Jae-sung presented his evolutionary research. Other species had evolved to fight animals, plants, and environmental challenges. They had developed weapons to hunt prey or defend against predators, but they had never needed to fight other intelligent beings who could think and plan and adapt. Humans were unique because they had evolved while competing with other intelligent species for the same resources. This created a completely different type of evolutionary pressure. Other species learned to make tools and weapons to survive in their environment, but humans learned to make weapons and strategies to defeat other intelligent beings. Dr. Haijin explained the implications to the research team. When you fight an animal, you need weapons that kill quickly and efficiently, but when you fight another intelligent being who can learn from your tactics, you need weapons and strategies that work against thinking opponents. This was why humans had developed psychological warfare while other species focused on physical combat. Humans had learned that sometimes preventing a fight was more effective than winning it. If you could make your enemies too afraid to fight, you could achieve victory without risking your own people. The research team discovered that human concepts like making an example of enemies came from millions of years of competition with other intelligent species. When fighting other humans, sometimes hurting one enemy would convince 10 others to surrender. This was not cruelty for its own sake, but evolutionary adaptation. For fighting intelligent opponents, Jae-sung showed genetic evidence that supported their theory. Human DNA contained traces of interbreeding with multiple other intelligent species. This proved that humans had not just competed with other intelligent beings, but had also formed alliances and relationships with them. The evidence showed that early humans had been involved in complex political relationships with Neanderthals and other subspecies. They had fought wars, made peace treaties, and engaged in psychological warfare against opponents who were just as intelligent as they were. Dr. Haijin discovered that human language still contained remnants of this evolutionary history. Human words for deception, manipulation, and psychological pressure were some of the oldest words in human languages. They had developed these concepts millions of years ago. When they were competing with other intelligent species, the research team analyzed human behavior patterns and found that humans still showed signs of their evolutionary past. When humans encountered other intelligent beings, they automatically began using psychological assessment and manipulation techniques. These were not conscious choices, but evolutionary instincts that had been programmed into human behavior. Jae-sung made the most important discovery of all. He found that human psychological warfare capabilities only emerged when humans were competing with other intelligent beings. When humans fought animals or dealt with environmental Challenges: they used the same efficient direct methods that other species used. The complex psychological tactics that frightened other species only appeared when humans were facing intelligent opponents. This proved that human psychological warfare was not general cruelty but specific adaptation for fighting other intelligent beings. Dr. Hygen analyzed human entertainment and found that violent human media was actually training for psychological warfare. Human movies and games that featured psychological manipulation were teaching humans how to recognize and counter the same tactics. These were not celebrations of cruelty, but education systems for dealing with intelligent opponents. The research team discovered that human children naturally develop psychological warfare capabilities through play. Human games like hide and seek, capture the flag, and even simple competition were actually training exercises for the complex psychological tactics that humans used against intelligent enemies. Jisung found evidence that human empathy was also an evolutionary adaptation for fighting intelligent opponents. Humans have developed the ability to understand and predict the thoughts and emotions of other intelligent beings. This made them incredibly effective at psychological warfare, but it also made them capable of great compassion and cooperation. The ability to understand another being's mental state was what allowed humans to form strong emotional bonds with family and friends. But the same ability could be used to manipulate and control enemies. This was why humans seemed to be capable of both great kindness and extreme cruelty. Dr. Hygen made a crucial distinction between human behavior toward members of their own group and behavior toward outsiders. Humans had evolved to be incredibly loyal and caring toward their own people, but they had also evolved to be ruthless and manipulative toward their enemies. This explained why alien observers were so confused by human behavior. Humans could be loving parents and caring friends, while simultaneously being capable of psychological warfare against their enemies. Other species did not have this psychological flexibility because they had never evolved to fight other intelligent beings. The research team realized that human psychological warfare was not a choice or a cultural development, but an evolutionary adaptation that had been built into human DNA over millions of years. Humans could not simply choose to stop using psychological tactics any more than they could choose to stop being intelligent. Jisung presented the final conclusion of their research. Humans were not naturally evil or sadistic, but they had evolved unique psychological capabilities. Because they were the only known species that had survived competition with other intelligent beings on their home planet. Every other species in the galaxy had evolved alone. They had developed cooperation and harmony because they had never needed to fight other intelligent beings, but humans had evolved in a world where other intelligent species were competitors for the same resources. This created evolutionary pressures that no other species had experienced. Humans had learned to fight not just with weapons and strength, but with psychology and deception. They had developed the ability to understand and manipulate other intelligent beings because their survival had depended on it. The research explained why humans were so feared by other species. Human psychological warfare capabilities were specifically designed to work against intelligent opponents. This made humans incredibly dangerous to other intelligent species, even when humans had no intention of being hostile. Dr. Hygen concluded their presentation with a sobering realization: the other species in the galaxy were right to fear human psychological capabilities, but they were wrong about human motivations. Humans had not developed these abilities because they enjoyed causing suffering. They had developed them because they had to in order to survive. The question now was whether humanity could find a way to prove to the galaxy that their psychological warfare capabilities were evolutionary adaptations rather than moral choices, whether humans could convince other species that they were not monsters, but survivors of a unique evolutionary environment. As the research team prepared their report for Earth Command, they knew that they had uncovered the truth about human nature, but they also knew that the truth might not be enough to save humanity from permanent isolation. The galaxy feared humans for good evolutionary reasons, and changing that fear would require more than just understanding why humans were different. The evolutionary truth about humanity was both liberating and terrifying. Humans were not evil, but they were uniquely dangerous, and that danger was built into their DNA in ways that could never be completely eliminated. Ambassador Youngmi stood before the Galactic Council once again, but this time she carried hope in her hands. The research findings from Dr. Jae-sung and Dr. Haijin had given humanity a chance to explain themselves to the galaxy. The massive chamber was filled with alien delegates who had come to hear what humans had to say about their terrifying reputation. The lead counselor, with his 6 arms and color-changing skin, looked at Youngmi with obvious suspicion. His skin was flashing orange and red, which meant he was still very afraid of humans. The chamber was quieter than it had been during the previous session, but Youngmi could feel the tension radiating from hundreds of alien beings. Youngmi took a deep breath and began her presentation. You are correct that humans developed weapons and tactics designed to cause psychological suffering, she said. But you have misunderstood why we developed these capabilities. The reason will change everything you think. You know about my species, she activated the holographic display and showed the evolutionary research that had taken months to complete. The aliens leaned forward in their seats as they saw genetic evidence that Earth had been unique in the galaxy. Earth had produced multiple intelligent species at the same time, and this had created evolutionary pressures that no other planet had experienced for millions of years. Humans shared Earth with other intelligent beings, Youngmi explained. We competed with Neanderthals, Denisovans, and other human subspecies for the same resources, the same territory, and the same right to survive. This created a type of evolutionary pressure that no other species in this galaxy has ever experienced. Chamber erupted in surprised murmurs. As the aliens absorbed this information, many of them had never considered that a planet could produce multiple intelligent species simultaneously. They had all evolved alone on their homeworlds, without competition from other intelligent beings. Captain Ji-hoon, now serving as military liaison to the council, stood up to address the military implications of the research. Every other species in the galaxy learned to fight animals, plants, and environmental challenges, he said, but humans learned to fight other intelligent beings who could think and adapt and learn from our tactics. Explained why human weapons seem so cruel to other species. When you fight an animal, you need weapons that kill quickly and efficiently, but when you fight another intelligent being who can learn from your tactics, you need weapons and strategies that work against thinking opponents. Dr. So-young presented the psychological research that supported the evolutionary theory human psychological warfare. Capabilities only emerge when we are competing with other intelligent beings, she explained. When humans fight animals or deal with environmental challenges, we use the same efficient direct methods that other species use. The complex psychological tactics that frighten you only appear when humans face intelligent opponents. This proves that human psychological warfare is not general cruelty, but specific adaptation for fighting other intelligent beings. The alien delegates listened with growing fascination as the humans explained concepts that they had never encountered before. The idea that psychological warfare was an evolutionary adaptation rather than moral choice was completely new to them. Youngmi showed comparative data that demonstrated the difference between human behavior toward their own people and behavior toward enemies. Humans evolved to be incredibly loyal and caring toward their own group, but they also evolved to be strategic and manipulative toward their enemies. This is why our behavior seems contradictory to Youngmi said. We can be loving parents and caring friends while also being capable of psychological warfare. Against our enemies, we developed this psychological flexibility because our survival depended on it. The lead counselor asked the question that everyone was thinking, but if this is evolutionary adaptation built into your DNA, how can we trust that you will not use these capabilities against us? Captain Ji-hoon answered the question with brutal honesty. You cannot trust that we will never use psychological tactics, he said, but you can trust that we will only use them when we perceive you as enemies. If you treat us as allies and friends, our evolutionary programming will make us loyal and protective toward you. Dr. So-young added crucial context. Our research shows that human psychological warfare capabilities are triggered by competition and conflict. When humans are cooperating and working together, they use the same collaborative behaviors that other species use. The aliens began to understand that human psychology was more complex than they had realized. Humans were not inherently evil, but they were evolutionarily programmed to respond to intelligent opponents with psychological tactics that other species had never developed. Mi presented the final part of her argument. We understand why our methods seem extreme to you, she said. Our weapons and tactics reflect millions of years of competition with other intelligent species, but this same evolutionary pressure also gave us capabilities that could benefit the galaxy. She showed examples of human cooperation and problem-solving that impressed the alien delegates. Humans had developed the ability to understand and predict the thoughts and emotions of other intelligent beings. This made them dangerous enemies, but it also made them incredibly effective allies. The evolutionary pressure that created our psychological warfare capabilities also created our ability to form deep emotional bonds with other intelligent beings. Young Mi explained, we can understand and empathize with other species in ways that might be unique in the galaxy. Captain Ji-hoon made a proposal that surprised everyone in the chamber. Instead of fearing our psychological capabilities, you should consider how they could be useful. The same abilities that make us dangerous enemies could make us powerful allies in conflicts with truly hostile forces. The chamber fell silent. As the aliens considered this possibility, they had been so focused on the threat that humans posed that they had never considered the benefits of human psychological capabilities. Dr. So Young presented research showing that human psychological warfare was most effective against species that were similar to human. Species that were very different from humans were less susceptible to human psychological tactics. This meant that humans could be valuable allies against threats that other species could not handle. The lead counselor asked for a recess so that the alien delegates could discuss what they had learned. When the session resumed, the atmosphere in the